everyone. My name is Paul Garcia, and I am your host here on the Spurscast. Today, I'll be joined by Project Spurs team members Joe Garcia, Benjamin Bornstein, Vickie Villareal in this emergency Spurscast and Spurs Round Table episode. In this episode, we'll be discussing the breaking news of Dejounte Murray being traded to the Atlanta Hawks as the San Antonio Spurs continue their rebuild. So we'll get into the specifics of the Dejounte trade here in a second, everyone. But let's go ahead and begin with just initial thoughts and reactions. Joe Garcia, going to start us off. What was your initial reaction this afternoon when news came out from Woj that Dejounte Murray is being moved to the Atlanta Hawks?
Actually, I felt relief and I was excited. And I know that's not the typical reaction, but honestly, I mean, it's been coming. The writing's been on the wall for quite some time already. To me, I was excited because at least now the Spurs have a clear direction of what they are and where they're going, and that is full rebuild mode. So hopefully this will translate into a top 5 pick and a franchise-changing player that the team can build around. So I'm happy with the decision to move on from Dejounte because of the latest reports, as we have been seeing. Ben's buddy over here, Brian Windhorst, had said that Dejounte had informed the team that he was not going to go ahead and sign that extension. That is the rumor. So it's no wonder the Spurs went ahead and made this trade. And it also explains a lot of what they did as far as the draft picks and their selections of the players that they picked. It makes more sense now.
Okay, Vickie, what were your initial thoughts when this happened?
I completely didn't expect it. I did not see it happening because, and just like Joe said, I'm glad they finally picked their path, but they've had 4 years to pick the path, and their path was not tanking. They were rebuilding through development, and it seems like 4 years wasted of developing Dejounte Murray. And I get it. This is the best year he's had. It's when he's going to be, the most valuable to, get something in return for. I get that. But this is something they could have done with Kawhi. I mean, if they would have settled for picks with Kawhi, we could have been already back. The Spurs would have been back in the mid, field right there contending. So it was super frustrating to me because it seemed like they had committed to rebuilding in a way that was not tanking. And there were a lot of positives happening with the Spurs and with, their prospects. There's still Primo, who apparently is, this really great prospect. The draftees that were acquired this year are really great. It would have been awesome to see what could have happened with Dejounte as the leader. I mean, I think other stuff still could have been done. Other moves could have been made, but I think building around Dejounte would have gotten the Spurs to a good playoff contention within the next few years. And I really think that could have happened. Now it's kind of like just this hope that they're going to land some generational talent, and that's not promised. And we know that, there have been great flops in drafts before. So I'm still not sold on it. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I want the Spurs to succeed no matter what.
Well, good news, bad news, Vickie. Your Dejounte Murray jerseys will be half price at the fan shop.
Ben, what are your initial thoughts? And one of our old team members, guys, Josh Paredes is here. He's watching. He says,
"My guy, JP,
Spurscast live." So, Ben, what were your initial thoughts when this happened?
It's okay, Vickie. It's actually not real life. This is the Matrix. None of this happened.
I wish.
Just unjack and you'll be fine. It never happened. Just forget it. But to kind of tie all of this together with Brian Windhorst reporting that Dejounte Murray wouldn't have taken a max contract is very interesting to me. To me, that kind of says Dejounte Murray wasn't going to bet on himself to make an all-NBA team in the next 2 years to activate the Supermax, potentially, which the Spurs would have been able to pay him over 5 years and more than any other team. I don't know what those numbers would have looked like. We just got the new cap projections today. Yeah. Of course, we don't know what the cap projections are for next year and the year after, so on. So it's hard to say how much money that would have been, but presumably it would be worth a lot more than what other teams can offer, not only because of the extra year and they have the bird rights, but also because Texas doesn't have a state income tax, which, like, when people are talking about free agency and talking about contracts being worth more than others, nobody talks about state income tax. Like, if you go out to California or New York, you're paying way more state income tax than you do in Florida, in Texas. Food for thought. But with the trade, I actually thought the Spurs got a lot in return. You're talking about 3 Charlotte top 16 pick for next draft. Now if you're a Spurs fan, you're actually becoming a Charlotte fan now. You want them to make the playoffs so that the pick conveys. If it doesn't convey this year, I think it then becomes top 14 protected and then top 12 or top 10 protected. And then after that, it becomes 2 second rounders, which is kind of useless. So Hornets, don't suck. You have LaMelo Ball. Do better. But
and also in the go ahead.
It's so, now the Spurs fans are like rooting for other teams to do well, so that, or the Hawks to be terrible somehow for the picks to be good picks. And I also don't think it's a coincidence that the picks start conveying in 2025. Dejounte Murray's contract is good until the end of the 23-24 season. Presumably they'll try and re-sign him. If they don't, that's a year of flux with them. They don't know what they're doing. A completely unprotected pick. This cannot be emphasized enough that all 3 of those picks are unprotected. That does not happen ever. That has not happened in a long time. So I think
we have a fan
there has to
reaction
be
here.
a lot of credit given to the front office for getting those picks in return, because they could have easily said, we'll take lottery protected, whatever it is. And the Hawks are probably not going to be in the lottery in the next couple of years, at least, presumably with DeJounte and Trae Young leading that backcourt. So I think it was strategic planning there. I don't think it should be overlooked. That's my more than 2 cents.
And I agree with Joe and Vickie here, and also Ben. Just what Joe said there is, I'm just happy that they picked a path. Just as far as like me running the cap sheets and stuff, it was like, are they going to go after Aiden to like be competitive? Are they going to try to trade for John Collins, or are they just going to go for full rebuild? And now we know they're going for full rebuild. But like what Vickie said, I think that the year once Kawhi made that decision, he wanted out of San Antonio. That was their time to try to start moving on. Not try to get DeMar DeRozan and other players back. Now I know they ended up getting more first round picks out of that, but again, I think that was when they should have started that rebuild. But again, just going to the past there. All right, so we're getting some questions like Joe mentioned here. We have Tavarius says, what do the Spurs do with all this cap space? So we're about to get to that in a little bit. I'll go ahead and go straight to that question, but let me just explain what's going on with the trade salary dumps for picks. So let's talk about all these questions. So let's talk about the trade in detail. So the Spurs, who are they getting in this trade? They are getting one player, Danilo Gallinari. His contract, I'm waiting for the details. They haven't come out yet. It's likely to be amended because it was supposed to guarantee at $5 million. It has a guarantee of $5 million, but it was supposed to guarantee today at 21.4. In order for this trade to take place legally after July 6th, the Hawks need to push that amount to 11.5 or to about 13.5 million. So I haven't got that exact number just yet. And also they might push his guarantee date. So in the end, the Spurs may only pay like 11 million to waive Gallinari once he gets traded for DeJounte officially. And why they had to do that is because DeJounte's salary for next year was less than that 21 million that Gallinari had, and just due to cap complications, they had to extend and bump up Gallinari's salary. So in the end, the Spurs, yes, they're going to waive Gallinari most likely, is what we expect once the trade goes through, but it may not be for that full 21 million. He may only get like 11 million, 13 million. So that works out for the Spurs. Now, the big thing is what Ben said there. That's the fact that they get those 3 future first round picks and a pick swap. They get the 2023 Hawks pick. Just like Ben said, I'm not going to go into detail because he said, it's a lottery protected. So if you're a Spurs fan, you're rooting for Charlotte to be good next year, like Ben mentioned there. The Spurs also get the 2025 and 2027 unprotected first round picks from the Hawks and a 2026 pick swap with the Hawks. Now, what did the Hawks get? They get DeJounte. He had 2 years left on his deal. I know on a very team friendly contract. However, now that the cap's going up, we've been saying 40 million lately in 2024 for DeJounte. Well, guess what? Now that the cap's boosting, it's going to be 40.8 million. So again, that his salary for when he's an unrestricted free agent in 2 years is just continuing to expand. It looks like the Spurs were not planning on signing. So let's go to one of our first questions and how much cap space can the Spurs open and what can they do with that cap space? So still, if they take away the qualifying offers from Lonnie Walker IV and what's his name, Joe Wieskamp, and they also waive Trey Jones, Keita Bates-Diop, and Jock Landale, well, they can open up to 31.1 million right now. This is assuming that Gallo's at that $21 million cap hold. If Gallo's number is less, like 11 or 13 million, that's even more money. So basically over 30 million, just about. And so there's that question is, do they go after free agents? Someone who's already been mentioned by two different reporters that I've read is Tyus Jones, who has projections of about 13.7 million, according to The Athletic, or 15.9 million, according to Profit X. So let's begin with Vickie here. What do you think they should do with their cap, with their cap space right now? Should they go after some free agents for some team needs, or should they just try to take on bad contracts for more picks for this rebuilding process?
Honestly, now I want them to pick their lane. If they picked it, if they're going to go full rebuild, yeah, bad contracts, get more picks, just try to build more capital that they can use. I want them to commit to it now, because it's like, been sort of like this. Everyone thought they were committed to a way, and then, they just kind of like pulled the rug out from under us. So it's like, yeah, commit to it. Just continue on this path. Aim for next draft. I know that we're going to talk about it, one of the upcoming topics, but yeah, I mean, if they're really going to put all their eggs in that basket, then go for it and go hard. And yeah, don't try to sign and waste the chance of actually winning again on accident.
Joe, what are your thoughts? What do you think they should do with this cap space if they open up to 31 million?
I think they should just go ahead and embrace what they are. They're in full rebuild mode. So why deviate from the path? This is the path they have chosen. And I think going ahead and going down the path of least resistance and garnering as many picks as possible to go ahead and rebuild this team and move forward, hopefully to getting back to a playoff team in the next couple of seasons. They need to go ahead and choose that path. So unfortunately for me, it's going to be go ahead and get these bad deals in place and bad contracts, whatever you got to do just to keep on going down the path you have chosen.
Okay. Ben, what's your thoughts there?
You're all wrong. No. If they get that number up, if the Gallo number comes down and the cap space number goes down, I would say they should actually still go after DeAndre Ayton. They can offer him more money than anybody else.
Yep.
And he feels like a guy who doesn't really care if they start winning. Oh no, as long as he gets paid.
So what are they going to do? Do they draft Ayton?
His whole issue with Phoenix is he's not one of the focal points of the offense. That's what he wants. The Spurs can offer him that, and they can pay him while doing so. It's not to say that he doesn't value winning at all. That's crazy. I understand that. I'm not a complete psycho usually. But if the Spurs can come out there and say, hey man, guess what?
Yeah.
We can offer you all this money and we can offer you all this attention on offense. You can be the guy. That might sound pretty appealing to him. And frankly, the Suns can't really afford him. They need if they want to be able to afford him, they have to sign and trade. They have to figure out their cap situation too, because they already agreed to pay Devin Booker. They're paying Chris Paul an obscene amount of money for someone that age, and they're paying Mikal Bridges as well. Like that basically those three guys have tied up the majority of their money for at least the next 2 years, I think. I think Chris' contract, if I'm not mistaken. So I just to me, you can still go after big name guys. You could, if the Hawks don't figure out what they're doing with John Collins, maybe you can wait on him and figure him out later. I don't know how long his contract goes because I think they did end up extending him a couple years ago.
Collins has 4 years left on his deal with the.
Oh, he has 4 years. Never mind. Terrible idea. I have spoken stupidly.
Yeah.
But I saw a great question from Josh. Actually, I want to answer that really quick.
Go ahead.
He says, a credible source said the Spurs preferred one of the unprotected first-round picks over Onyeka Okongwu. He's torn about if that was wise or not. We already eyeing someone from the 2027 class. Yeah, we're hold on, let me do the math. We're what is that? That's 5 years away. So we're looking at what, a ninth grader now? Yeah, we're definitely looking at the ninth graders for sure, Josh. Yeah. Love it. Always looking to the future. Surely there's a ninth grader in Texas who's got talent. Hide him away somewhere. Find a way to stash him. Eric, I see Eric here has an easy question for us to answer. I don't know off the top of my head. He's asking, is DeAndre Ayton 23? I think that's close. He was the 2018 draft. He was presumably 19 or 20 coming out. So now you're going to make me do math. That's 4 years. He's at least 22.
23.
So yes, I would say 22 or 23.
He is 23. Yep.
23. There you go. Thank you, Paul.
Good job, Ben. Right on the fly there.
One of my favorite comments right now is going to be from.
I only remember he was in that draft, and I don't remember. I knew he was at Arizona for 1 year, and that was it. So I was assuming he was 19. Please don't make me do math again, guys.
Look at this comment right here. I like this comment from Perfect Praxis. He says, "How often do these types of trades work out for the team that trades all the picks?"
Yeah, anybody got a response to that one?
I don't know, but it seems like it's. I mean, I do think Atlanta is also kind of stupid for wasting.
Well,
I mean,
2 years with
they
them
gave up a
until
lot.
now.
They gave up a lot.
They gave up, but they are legitimately chasing a title. They are now legitimately chasing a title.
I guess.
Even in a really tough.
If it pays off, it pays. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how
they don't
Dejounte
make-
and Trey work together.
I would argue if they don't make the ECF the next 2 years, they wasted that. That was a bad trade for them.
Yeah, and they're showing that.
He is now.
Yeah, they're showing that commitment to Trae Young. The fact that they're actually like becoming a tax team to take on DeJounte's money and try to do it, and they still have some more moves probably lined up. So let's continue real quick because we have like a mixture here of the comments. We're kind of mixing with the topics from our episode. Let's continue here. So one of the questions is, what are the Spurs going to do with their current veterans now that it looks like they're definitely going to rebuilding mode? So we know that players to watch out for now in the trade market are probably going to be Jakob Poeltl, Doug McDermott, Josh Richardson. Do y'all think that whoever wants to take this question, do y'all think that they're definitely about the trade block, but we could end up seeing these players moved as well?
Well, here's the thing that's interesting to me. You have Dejounte Murray's the first shoe to drop. Now with the Spurs wanting to go ahead and be in full rebuild mode, I think it signals that they might be willing to go ahead and part with some of their other assets, such as Jakob Poeltl or Keldon Johnson, even Trey Jones, maybe Devin Vassell. And thus, I got to say, Devin Vassell's bulked up a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see his progress come, this upcoming season. And, when you have players that are developing and they're young and are attractive to other teams, their trade value might be at its apex, early on in their careers because they have more tread on the tire, So if the Spurs are interested in these picks and, going ahead and stacking them, they might go ahead and just start listening to other offers. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing more and more rumors come to light as free agency is going to start kicking off here pretty soon, in full swing.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think Poeltl isn't safe or is more gone than here now. I also could think maybe even Keldon, as much as I would hate that. But I don't think anyone's really protected. I do think Vassell down, like Vassell, Primo are going to stick with the Spurs because they're not going to get rid of everybody without any kind of hope for the future. Like, they've got to have some sort of bridge. So I think they're going to keep some of the younger guys, but yeah, maybe Keldon even is not safe.
And Josh is
Joe. Are you seeing Josh's? Yes. Okay. So this is a good. Let's bring this up. So Josh put it. This says Joe, as Will Smith once said, keep Devin Vassell's name out of your mouth. I think that's
terrible.
I think that's definitely true. I think what Vickie just said is key there. Josh Primo, Devin Vassell. These are these are definitely players that I do not think are going to be in any kind of trade discussions for sure. These are the players that it actually makes this coming season kind of interesting. I really think that yes, Primo's might be that starting point guard for them, and then for sure Devin Vassell out on the wing. He's going to get an expanded role. He's probably going to start. He's going to get to do a lot more pick and roll, a lot more different just responsibilities on offense, and they do want to see how he develops. The player that's interesting though is Keldon. So let's talk about him next in our segment. So the reason why I bring up Keldon is because right now, up until October 31st, Halloween, the Spurs can extend his contract. Now he's due for an extension, maybe in the $18 to $20 million range would be his projection right now. But now, knowing what they just did with Murray here, what are y'all's thoughts? What do y'all think about, do you think they extend Keldon? And if not, he'll be in the same situation as Lonnie, where next season he becomes a restricted free agent for the Spurs. So Ben, go to start there. What do you think's going to happen with Keldon now in this situation?
Oh, just an FYI real quick, we do have Evan on standby, so I'll bring him in after Ben's take.
Okay.
You mean Keldon Big Body Johnson, the God?
Yeah.
Obviously, I like Keldon Johnson.
Me too.
I think they keep him. I feel like he now with Jeremy Sohan, he can move to his natural position of 3, and yeah, he probably plays bigger, but I think it's a natural move for him there. He starts there. I think the bigger question is what happens with the guards. I mean, there are people talking about Tyus Jones would be interested, which would be incredibly ironic since he would be taking his brother's minutes.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about that. Talk about sibling rivalry. I mean, that would be great and terrible. Rareable. I don't know. Is there a word for that? But that would create its own. Maybe not chemistry issues, but that would create its own drama. I think, which as a franchise that is about to tank and rebuild, I don't think you want that drama. Not to say that Tyus Jones isn't a good player. Obviously, I believe he is a good player. I think I think Paul mentioned it earlier that he was expected to get in like the 17 mil range.
13 to about $15 million range.
Okay. See, this is why I don't do math. But why pay him if you think you can develop his brother who is on a rookie contract and is much cheaper and is obviously younger? And you're in a rebuilding mode. What's the point of going and getting a Tyus Jones? Now, I would say that there's possibility Jakob Poeltl's gone too. I mean, you can get assets for him, and I think the Spurs are just going to collect picks. They're going to say, we will out OKC. We will have picks, and we will take future 7th graders. We don't care.
You better be careful there. That's Jonas Clark's boy. He's going to say, keep Jakob Poeltl's name out your mouth.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
listen, I love Clark. He's my guy.
Let me go ahead and bring that in. He's been on standby long enough.
Clonus Jark, if you will. Jark Clonus. I always reverse it. I'm sorry. But that is my guy.
Coming off the bench, coming in late off the bench, we got Evan Townsend joining us.
woo.
What's up, Evan?
So
Hey, here we go.
You guys hear me?
all right, so
Yep.
So now let's move on to our next topic here, and this is a player that's been he's not even in the eligible to play in the NBA yet, but this is for next year, and this is a reason why we think that the Spurs might have made these moves today is this player, and Evan and Ben, y'all are probably the best to talk about this player here, Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs but something Vickie said earlier when she first started saying there's no guarantee because of the new lottery rules that there's only a 14% chance, even if the Spurs have the worst record in the league. They may not end up with that number 1 pick. The Rockets only won 20 games last year, had the worst record, and they got the 2nd pick, not the 1st pick. So, Ben, let's let Evan take this question first. But Evan, who is this player, Victor Wembanyama, that's projected to be the number 1 pick next year in 2023 in case the Spurs do get that number 1 pick?
This is definitely one of the best prospects we've seen maybe since Zion and probably since LeBron before. He's probably 7'5". He's not even 7'4". We need to cut his hair to make sure we can get a good measurement on him. This kid is a twig, but he's a prototype that you can't pass on. He's a one-of-one type of unicorn you can't pass upon. Giannis type of fluidity, step backs, crazy ball moving Jordan-like ball moves because his hand is so huge. Like, he just throws people off his game. And he left Tony Parker's team to sign with who? Boris Diaw. Hey, keep it in the Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe – I mean, like how Vickie was saying, I just joined. But realistically, the 14%, I mean, not only is that the best chance you can get, I mean, if you have one of the worst records in the league, Spurs had picks to move up. We've seen how this past draft class, this sounds crazy to say, this past draft class, how they were treating things, how people were trying to make sure they land on a certain team. Paolo looked pissed he wasn't a Rocket. Obviously, he was best friends with KPJ back in the day. Chet was being buddy with Chet, with Josh Giddey on Instagram for weeks. Literally, these guys make their decisions weeks ahead of time, and then as the draft process goes on, you see, oh yeah, Jaden Ivey's not going to be a king. He said this about the Indiana Pacers, and so maybe Victor, a 1-4 shot, 1-3, that's still a good shot, and we can maybe even swoop maybe any team besides OKC because I forgot, Ben, you can answer this. what his manager used to work on the OKC Thunder, right? Back in the day?
Sam Presti?
Something like that. No, not Victor Wembanyama's agent or somebody on his used to work for OKC back in the day, right?
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but I remember reading something about that. Yeah. So there are guys there.
Ben, what do you have to add about Wembanyama? Wembanyama. I have his name in hyphens too, and I still can't say it right.
Yeah. First of all, phenomenal name. Great scrap if you're into that. But like Evan said, his measurements, there is not any consistent measurement I have seen on him. I have seen anywhere from like 7'2" to 7'5", and anywhere from like 230 to 250 pounds. So like he's not as thin as Chet Holmgren is, which is good. So there's a little less concern about how it might wear on his body, but you're talking about a guy, all of the hype around him has been he has the defensive chops of a Rudy Gobert who moves better, but with the offensive game of potentially a much larger, taller Kevin Durant. I mean, we really have to get into the tape and watch him more, but like that's how people have been describing him.
Yeah.
Which is wild. And they're saying he's going to be the best prospect since Anthony Davis.
Wow.
And only because Anthony Davis was 2012, LeBron was 2003. But I mean, we're talking this guy could potentially change your franchise. That's how crazy good he is and how he's Josh, you need to get out of here, Josh. He's
Joe, you want to share that?
That's not even a word score, but he's
72 points.
Don't be playing Scrabble against Josh.
I know. Josh is not here. He's actually like looking at it. He's like, if I put it,
he's gonna be that guy with the freaking thesaurus in the dictionary. Wait. I don't think that's a real word.
Yeah. But piggybacking off of what Vickie said with the 1-in-3 opportunity. In 97, by the way, the Celtics were supposed to have the top pick. Can you imagine how different that franchise is in the late 90s and the early 2000s and not relying on old man Paul Pierce for a lot of things? They're a much different, like Victor Wembanyama could be that guy. We don't know for sure. I really want to watch him play at a high level. The French league is fine. I really want to see how he might play at Worlds. I think he played U19 against a lot of guys who are now in college, and he was eating dudes alive. So that's a good sign, but it's also against guys who are in college, not necessarily top NBA guys. So it's watch him. Just watch him all this year. And Matthew, yes, he could also be like all the number one busts, but you can say that every single year. I don't think there has been a guaranteed non-bust. I mean, you're talking guaranteed non-bust, even hyping into the draft. You're talking about probably Tim Duncan. You're talking about LeBron James. There was probably talk about Dwight Howard at some point the year after that. You're talking about Anthony Davis. I mean, even Zion Williamson was supposed to be, the most guaranteed number one thing, and he's had injuries. So no one is safe. No one is ever safe, right? This is not a video game where you get to turn injuries off. I wish it was. It would make for a much more exciting league. But, it's hard to project that stuff with, unless the guy really has a history of injuries. But as far as I know, Victor Wembanyama does not. And talent is too good.
Yeah, I think we need to start sharing some of the fan reactions that we had.
I was going to go through a few of these comments. So I agree with Eric Facina here. He says we have to get the first pick if he's generational talent. Who trades him away? If I was a Spurs, if I was a team, I wouldn't want to trade away the number one pick if it's Wembanyama with the way you all are describing him. Real quick, some cap clarification question here. Paul F asks, if Spurs waive Gallinari tonight, they are only on the hook for like $6 million. Good question here. So the Dejounte and Atlanta trade cannot go down until after July 6th when the NBA moratorium is lifted. The reason for that is because Gallo's salary was at $20 million to end this season, and DeJounte's was only at $15 million, and just the cap ramifications would have worked. So what the Spurs and Hawks most likely did was Hawks guaranteed his partial guarantee. They moved it to about 11 to 13 million, and that will help cap wise work with Dejounte's 16 million that he's going to make next year with the Hawks. So again, that's why this trade most likely does not happen until after July 6th, unless more players are included. If it were to happen before June 30th, which is very doubtful. So that's again. So what we're thinking right now is what we talked about earlier, is that when the Spurs waive Gallinari, it may only be for 11 or 13 million. It may not be for that full 21 million if they were able to push his guarantee date back. So real quick, before we continue the comments, Ben and Evan, who is this other guy? Scoot Henderson, I believe is his name. Who's supposed to be the number 2 pick? Anybody got any updates on him, or what kind of prospect he is?
He's playing for G League. He is a point guard. And he has a great name.
Yes, very good.
He's like in the same category as like a Job, Derrick Rose. Really just springy point guard that has a good feel for the game. Quick first step that if he gets a good screen, if he doesn't get a good screen one way or another, he's going to beat you off of it. And he even posted it. That Ben, did you see that crazy dunk he had? It was like a between the legs before like he threw the ball up between his arms. Then between the legs, 6'4".
I have not seen that.
He put on his either Twitter or Instagram. That showcased all the type of springs you need. That is a one-of-one type of prospect. So yeah, I wouldn't stamp him as a number 2. There's like 5 or 6 other guys that can go number 2. And Victor, he could have injury concerns that from the number 1 spot.
Mm-hmm.
This draft is very much Victor Wembanyama is in his own tier.
Okay.
But that second tier is still really dang good. Like it's not like the tiers from this draft where it was any one of those top 3 guys could go number 1. And then it was like Jaden Ivey is like maybe in that tier, maybe in his own tier. And then it's kind of everybody else. This is very much the top 2, the top tier, Victor alone, he is the guy. There's maybe 10 guys under that who are all kind of in a similar tier. Maybe not that many, but there's a lot more than this year in that second tier.
Hey, we have a really good comment here from one of our viewers watching us from YouTube right now. His name is James from the Alamo City. He's saying, I know it's in the past, James, but what we did today, we should have done with Kawhi and got tons of picks, money, or a mid-level or superstar in return. DeMar doesn't count. And I'm in agreement with them. I think really what today signifies is, and how we got here, was poor decision-making by the front office at the time when they just didn't want to go ahead and trade Kawhi, let's say, to one of their competitors in the Western Conference, such as the Lakers, which it was rumored the Lakers had a ton of top-level talent that they wanted to give us in return for Kawhi Leonard, maybe even some picks. The Spurs declined that. Ultimately, they decided to go ahead and go with the trade with Toronto that's, garnered DeMar, DeRozan, Jakob Portal, and a pick. Again, poor decision making. They should have moved on from Kawhi and garnered some picks and really started going ahead and changing that trajectory of, okay, we're in full rebuild mode now, instead of waiting for what happened today. If they had done that in the past, then maybe Dejounte would still be a part of the San Antonio Spurs team moving forward. But it is what it is at this juncture. But I mean, it was a valid question.
I really think that when I say there wasn't another trade available that made sense, think about the guys that were offered for Dejounte. Let's not think rumors, let's think like logistically here. Maybe he's in the same tier of like a Jaylen Brown, right? A fringe all-star that could be an all-star one year that's not an all-star this year. Celtics aren't trading Jaylen Brown. Nobody's trading their guy that is on Dejounte's level, right? Dejounte's on one of the best contracts in the league, right? By far. If he didn't want to be here, and I'm not gonna say he forced the Spurs' hands, we don't know all these cryptic posts means, but it probably doesn't mean good things, right? Probably was a little frustrated when he found out Zach LaVine and DeAndre Ayton were coming to town. If this was a trade that got you all the picks you wanted and no disgruntled star or no guy that fits the Spurs way or Spurs competitive timeline, get whatever you need ASAP and then use those picks for future trades you can get in a sign and trade. So they made one of possibly 2 or 3 trades that made sense. They got the best available.
You know what? I want to get rid of that term. I hate that term, man. The Spurs way. And you know what? You could have used that term when you had Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili here. Nowadays, with the Spurs and the team being in flux, who gives a damn about the Spurs way? You need to be able to get a player that you can bring in, and that player can go ahead and change the dynamic of the franchise and get you back to your winning ways. I'd be damned if I care if he fits the Spurs way or not. As long as the team gets back to its winning ways, I'm fine with it. I don't care what the dude does with his free time or how he is off the court.
I think as long as Pop's coaching, though, it's gonna be Pop's way or no way. He's got to fit the culture. He's got to fit the culture, or else it's not going to work.
But what is the Spurs culture now? It's been reduced to now we're in a rebuild mode. You know, the Spurs
but
culture
personality-wise, I think they're still looking for a certain type of personality. They don't want somebody with an ego.
See, I think that's where the team gets themselves in trouble. If you start looking for certain personalities because they fit the Spurs way, you're selling yourself short. I'll be damned if the guy doesn't have a great personality. He's a hell of a player on the court. Pick him. You know, I mean, this. But
Spurs then what happened with Kawhi?
I'm saying, like, here's
that's
the thing.
how Kawhi left.
Bro, here's the thing with that. You take the BPA, some guy who we're not even gonna get into like how they carry themselves or how they embrace themselves online. But it's really about having respect. It's really about having respect for yourself and for your franchise. Spurs bring in a lot of guys that are dads. Spurs a lot of guys that are, not want to say holy men, but people that don't know, but people that respect themselves, people that don't go online and bash other people. I want you to imagine the type of antics Julius Randle was having with the Knicks this year, slamming the assistant's laptop. Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard going back and forth. You bring those type of guys, you're risking the Spurs ruining again their competitive time. Yeah. And here's the thing: I talked about this in the space. We're the only franchise in the NBA that does that. We're the goody Christian boys, 6A school with the fancy bus. Nobody cusses. Nobody says anything bad about Coach Pop, right? Not every player wants to play with us, right?
That's but true.
With the Spurs,
we're not dealing with the same antics the Hornets are dealing with. Players getting arrested, players posting what? Come on now, you know what I'm saying? We don't have to deal with that, and we can weed that out during the interview process as rookies. So
sorry about that.
And
some issues here with the internet, but
that's cool.
Again.
Just speaking of the Spurs culture stuff, the Spurs way. Sean Franklin here has a good comment. He says Blake Wesley is we in good hands, and that was something that Mitch Johnson mentioned. At post draft, he basically said that these three picks that they took, Sohan, Wesley, and also the who was the other player, Branham. He says that they still look for that in those players. They say they still evaluate them. They make sure they do all their background and intel just to make sure these are good character guys, and that's still something that the kind of culture that we follow. Let's continue though with the episode, and again, if we see more comments, we'll go ahead and go through them. Joe, let us know. I want to go through some other other offseason notes here that are happening right now since we are recording. This is partially a Spurscast as well. The team has made some moves here. They've tendered 2 qualifying offers, one to Lonnie Walker IV for $6.3 million and Joe Wieskamp for $1.8 million. And these are more so like in the case of Lonnie, it's more so just kind of see what his market is out there when he goes into free agency tomorrow. And if there's a team that has interest, well, then maybe the Spurs can try to work out a sign and trade. They can basically keep use his $13.3 million cap hold to facilitate that, or who knows, maybe he accepts it and he just comes back for 1 more year and then he's an unrestricted free agent next year. Wieskamp, they invested a year in him last year, so maybe they just want to bring him back on a small deal so that way they can see what he does, with going in this youthful direction that they're talking about. Unfortunately, I was really excited to see Jeremy Sohan after watching some YouTube clips of him over the last week, but he may not play at Summer League. Unfortunately, Sohan is in the health and safety protocols. Mitch Johnson, the Summer League coach, did not rule him out for Summer League entirely, but he's definitely not practicing right now. I was at the practice earlier today, and he's of course he's not able to be there with the new teammates. So Sohan, we're not certain he'll get to play in any of those 5 games with the Spurs. And then that's kind of it. But Joe, what are the latest comments?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say I feel for Jeremy Sohan. Maybe that trip taking the young players on a trip to the Riverwalk was a bad idea in hindsight with the COVID on the rise. I'm just saying because I just recovered from COVID about a week ago, and it was no joke. I felt like I had allergies, but I went and got tested. I had COVID, mild symptoms because I was fully vaccinated. So I'm good, but I mean, it's still something you don't want to go through, So I hope that Jeremy fully recovers as fast as he can, and maybe we can see him in some action in the Summer League. That's what I hope. Some of the Spurs comments that are coming in again from James from the Alamo City. He's putting, I love our Spurs, but superstars don't want to come to SA. No offense to Pop. Take Bron on as an example. He would love to play for Pop, but there are no other pieces in place to complement him. Well, not anymore. You know,
I don't know about that argument. I mean, you could argue he doesn't have squat in LA, and yeah, he has Anthony Davis, but how many games does Anthony Davis play every year? He plays maybe 50 games a year, and they had a super old roster this year, and they were worse than the Spurs. Okay, I'm not sure I'm buying that, but it's so funny to me because there are so many guys every year, and there were a bunch of guys at the Olympic Games who said, "Oh my God, it would be amazing to play for Pop. I had such a great time playing for Pop." So either they're blowing smoke, or there's something about San Antonio they don't like, and that's probably true. But it was also James from the Alamo City, not from any other city.
And we also had a comment from our good friend Rudy Campos from Sweep the League.
Rudy, get out of here, Rudy. Get out of here, man.
He put on tonight's episode, he says, to Sweep the League, he brought up a point everyone fails to see. Those Hawk picks are at the end of Trey's contract. If he bolts, then they are a lottery team. Put 2 and 2 together. He said, could pay off if he leaves Atlanta.
Yeah. And then they also had that Celtics pick swap in 28. That's another thing to watch too. So yeah. I don't know who mentioned it, Joe. I saw a comment here earlier where they said at least the Spurs made a choice of what they were doing. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier with the path. Somebody said, like, unlike the Knicks and Wizards and a few other teams. Oh yeah. So it was a Corey. Yeah. He said, at least we're willing to make the hard choices instead of waiting in mediocrity like the Kings, Wizards, and Knicks. And again, that's kind of where they were probably going to be if they kept Murray and then maybe signed Ayton or trade for John Collins. They would have been a better team than last year, but they're not going to probably be a top 6 Western Conference team. So I think that they made this choice right now to go for the future with that rebuild mode. Joe, any other comments?
Appreciate you not saying the Magic in there, even though you definitely should have.
They just got the number 1 pick, man.
Because they're bad.
I'd like to ask a question of both, Ben and Evan. This year's draft, as you had both stated, is a little bit better than the previous draft that just occurred. The Spurs are able to go ahead and garner a top 5 pick and possibly even go ahead and get, I don't know, maybe even an 11th or 15th pick, 19th pick. I mean, as you stated, this year's draft class is a lot stronger. So there's still quality players that are going to be available later on in the first round. At this juncture, do you think the Spurs should go ahead and keep that mantra of going ahead and drafting best available player? Or at this point, can they now afford the luxury of going ahead and drafting for need of the team? We'll go ahead and go with you, Evan.
It shouldn't be best player available. It should be best player adult. No kids. When I say an adult, you got to be mature. You got to be here for the long run. We're not wasting no pick on you. Like, literally, when I say waste a pick, it's no one that's going to have any type of issues. No, even RJ Hampton-esque dads. People don't know how bad of a nuisance RJ Hampton was. You know what I'm saying? Because of his dad. So, literally, we can't deal with anybody on the lines of that. Anybody on the lines of even, I don't want to say LeVar Ball-esque families, but, like, in terms of players, we really need to focus on somebody that brings another, I don't want to say, you got to be able to push the needle. You got to be able to fit in right. It doesn't have to be the position of need. But basically, if we figure out that Devin Vassell, I don't want to say got outplayed by Malachi Brandon, but Malachi Brandon solidified himself as a 6th man rather than a starter, we can maybe move on and grab another Devin Vassell replacement and shop him off. We can still replace anybody and everybody on this team, but we need to make sure that these people have futures for and want to be on this team, like, without a doubt. So
long term.
Yeah. So what about you, Ben? Do you think the Spurs should go ahead and still have that same mantra, going ahead and drafting best available player, or should they start looking to fill needs for the team now?
That's tough. My personal philosophy has always been to try and mix those two as best as possible. An example would be if the Spurs end up with the number 2 pick, and assuming things stay the way they are, I don't think Scoot Henderson at 6'2" and another guard is just the right move. There are other guys they could get, and it is going to depend on what they do with Jakob Poeltl, but assuming Poeltl is moved, a guy like Derek Lively II might be an option. If you're looking for another wing or forward, maybe Derek Whitehead, both guys going to Duke, by the way. Plenty plenty of other options out there if you're looking for different players. So I would say best available who may also happen to fit the mold or the profile of player you're looking for.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and start sharing some of the comments here from Twitter and reactions from some of the fans, because I think it's pretty funny, man, in my opinion. We'll go ahead and share the ones that are going to be PG rated. So we have one guy on here, or one Twitter user. He's saying Kawhi won a ring after being traded to Toronto. Derek White went to the finals after being traded to Boston. Dejounte being traded to Atlanta means the Hawks at least make the finals. Well, that's the hope for them. That's the gamble that they're betting on. Doesn't count when Brent Forbes didn't re-sign. He won a ring with Bucks. And here's some of the other reactions. We love you, Dejounte, and thank you for everything. And I also want to share Vickie Vic's reaction. This was her in her raw emotional state. Honestly, I don't understand how the Spurs front office made this decision. They're basically investing in not competing at an elite level for the foreseeable future. Wasn't the cap pretty healthy? I just don't see the positives at all. A veteran and 3 picks. Why?
Yeah. I mean, I just wish they would have made this decision a long time ago. They just kind of tricked everybody thinking like, yeah, we're going to, rebuild with what we've got. And then it's like, never mind. Here's the best player. Bye.
I like this comment here. I like this reaction. It says how DeJounte and Trae Young walking into Magic City.
Magic City
at the club.
Hey man, those wings ain't nothing to mess with. I'll tell you.
It's
he goes, and then Mr. Murray says, just realized DeJounte and Trae Young share the same birthday. That's crazy. So they got that in common. And Manhattan on Mars. I know he's always active, on Twitter. And he says, my MFing point guard, I'm sick, bro. Love you to SA because you got that dog in you. Well, he did have that dog in him, so it's a mixed bag. I mean, you got a lot of fans that are feeling hurt. They got in their feelings. The Spurs got in their feelings, but at the end of the day, it's like we always say, it is a business. You can never get attached to players because they can be gone at any point in time. They're commodities that could be traded, and unfortunately, that's basically what happened today. I know the Spurs Twitter fan base was divided for many days already, bickering back and forth that where there's smoke, there's fire. Then you had the diehards that said there's nothing that was going to happen. Well, I guess everybody just, had their own opinion. At the end of the day, the Spurs decided to do what's best for them and not Spurs Twitter. So to me, it was funny, not funny, but at least they have an identity now,
Here's a question I'd like to get. Just anybody wants to answer this one because I don't really have a player in mind. But who is this? James from the Alamo City asked earlier, which players do you all as the panel feel the Spurs should try and get tomorrow when free agency starts? So I definitely think now that we know they're heading in a rebuilding direction, they may be able to take a flyer like on a player who's like an unrestricted free agent, just a few years in the league who maybe it hasn't worked out on different teams. Do y'all have a specific name though? Because I looked at this list and I talked about this yesterday on the Spurs cast. I just wasn't very excited about this free agent group. If you're not going after players like Zach LaVine or Colin Sexton or anybody like that or DeAndre Ayton, does anybody have any players in mind that are free agents? Evan, you want to go? Go ahead.
Yeah. So
Evan,
Thomas Bryant is I'm pretty sure he's unrestricted. He's somebody that actually was people have just completely forgotten about. He's somebody that I could see being the fringe level. I don't want to give him a stamp of how much money he's going to get paid, but if you move on from Jakob, Thomas Bryant is like that fringe level. He's not going to push the needle. We're still going to suck. And he signed to the same agency as Josh Primo, by the way. And before we pass it to Ben, there's people. I'm on YouTube as well, reading these comments saying what I said about Vassell. When it comes down to like what this year is, literally, if you imagine a pass first point guard, whether it's Ricky Rubio, Tyus Jones, Trey Jones starting, right? We're not going to have a scoring point guard. We need to make sure our wings, we can see what these players have in them. We can see what type of roles they could fill. If Malachi or even Blake Wesley or someone else we sign, I don't want to say exceeds Devin's our player, or Devin is the number one option now. He makes that clear. One way or another, somebody, I want to say it's guaranteed to be moved, but don't be surprised if they get moved because we boosted their value and we flip them for more assets because they don't fit our timeline. That could be Keldon. I joined when you guys were talking about that. he might be on the move. Seriously, we maybe just wait for 5 o'clock to come around for an official signing trade. So there's more Woj bombs, sham splashes, whatever people say, inbound for the next 2 days for sure.
That's a new one, sham splashes. I hadn't heard that one, but I'm going to keep that in mind now.
That's good. Trademark it now, Evan.
Right.
I got to say, though, I'm going to talk, address this to Ben. But Ben, after looking at, the Summer League roster and, a late addition that the Spurs picked up in the draft, after it was all said and done, Dominique Barlow, kind of interesting to me, this kid. He kind of is an enigma to me. Maybe he can go ahead and make some noise. Maybe the Spurs might find some value in him and he might make the G League roster. I mean, what
he's on a 2-way
about
that confirmation today.
Yeah,
he's definitely on a 2-way
two-way
this coming season.
What can you tell us about this kid, man?
Played for Overtime Elite, looked pretty good. He's 6'9", very solidly built. I think Evan probably knows a little more than I do about him, actually, but he's definitely a very Spursian fit, I think. He can shoot a little bit from deep. He can step out. I think he's got kind of straight line drives in him for the most part if it's against slower guys. Yeah. But I think he could be like a sneaky Jock Landale-ish kind of signing where he ends up getting more minutes than you think here and there in, injury situations.
He reminds me of like a mix of what we saw from Greg Brown last year, which was very raw, and mix of maybe, I don't want to say prime Josh Smith, but maybe like second, third year Josh Smith in terms of his player style. Like you're looking at I don't want to say a combo forward, but a forward that's an athletic, I don't want to say freak, but he'll blow by you. He's a lob threat. He's somebody that I want to say you have to respect his shot, but 1 of 3, 1 of 4 maybe a game. And he is the definition of raw. There's no, Overtime Elite, that was the I don't know who signed first, him or John Montero, but neither of them got drafted. They really need to work on who and how they showcase and improve their talent, because he may be like I don't want to say the first man up on the Spurs roster if he exceeds expectations in Summer League, or he may be out the league. We don't know. So he's a definition of a prospect, a project. So he'll be in Austin for a while.
And that's part of what Overtime Elite has to do as well. They have to go out and they have to play against better competition is what it comes down to as well. Because people, they're not playing against other G League teams. They're not playing against like overseas competition that you have a good barometer of how good that team is. I think that's one of their problems as well. But that is a different topic for a different time.
Yeah. So I wanted to go ahead and get some of Vickie's closing arguments here. Anything you'd like to share, because she's going to have to go ahead and leave us here shortly because she's got a vacation to get ready for. So Vickie, anything you want to go ahead and say?
No, I'm calmed down. I was pretty heated, upset about this. But basically I've read a lot since it happened, and I'm coming to terms with what's happening.
You've gone through the 3 phases of grief already?
Yeah, I have. It sucks because, it seemed for a while there the Spurs were committing to something, and out of nowhere they changed their mind. That's what it sort of feels like. But as long as they stick to it and they actually go full rebuild, they do not win, they don't get to the play-in, they get that 14% chance at the top pick, then I'll be happy. But I just want to see them commit to it. And Spurs fans out there, don't go and boycott, don't stop going to the games, buying jerseys, all that stuff, because they need the support. It's not going to do anyone good if it doesn't look like San Antonio wants a team. So, don't take your frustrations out that way. It's going to be a couple seasons of suffering, but
I got to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
And this is something that me and Jonas were just jokingly having a conversation about. Do you think the Spurs need to just go ahead and ban bobblehead night? Because it seems like that night is cursed.
I haven't picked up my Keldon bobblehead. I haven't picked it up. And now I'm like, do I? Maybe I shouldn't.
I have to pick up my Coyote, my Keldon, and now my Dejounte.
I'll tell you, they're definitely not trading the Coyote.
Look at that.
I have Kawhi's too. It's still in the box. I never opened it.
Incredible.
You see, but the thing is like every time the Spurs announce bobblehead night, it's like he gone.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
Keldon,
Yeah.
he's not gone yet. But I mean, if
Don't
the
do that
curse
to me,
goes
Joe.
ahead and lives up to its hype, that means he gone
Yeah.
too. So Vickie, what do you want to do with Spurs bobblehead night? Do you think they just need to stop it altogether?
Yep.
There you go.
Get rid of it. That's it.
Did the Dejounte bobbleheads ever go on? Did those ever go in the public or no?
Well,
trying
the
to remember. I
Spurs
couldn't
did release
remember.
a statement, and I'm going to tell you, I looked at my email. I have my voucher. Jonas has his voucher because we went to that game. You can go now to the AT&T Center and go pick up your bobbleheads. But the thing is, they didn't even tell the public, man. They're just like, hey, we're going to have bobblehead
Yeah.
night. Come out. It's going to be great. You go out there, you buy your ticket. People brought extra tickets to get the vouchers. And then you get there and they announce on the big screen, oh, due to supply
Yeah.
chain shortages or your bobbleheads aren't going to be available. I'm like, bro, it's already been like how long since the season ended and you're just barely handing these out. And for your troubles, this is what the Spurs have done purely out of the kindness of their heart. They are actually giving you a Spurs 2020-2021 season yearbook. Yes, I said that right. A 2020-2021 Spurs season yearbook. I'm like, come on, man.
Wow.
Remember from this
Well,
Not even from this
Reminisce.
last season.
year? Yeah, but like, dude, like, that didn't get the media attention it really deserved.
yeah.
I'm just saying,
Aw.
man. If they have bobblehead
Well-
night this year, you ain't getting me like that. Spurs.
No,
You're
I'm
getting
not
me that way.
going.
I ain't
Well, it
going.
was great. It was great talking to y'all. I'm gonna hop off and
right,
stay
Vickie. We'll
positive,
see ya.
Spurs fans. You know.
Yeah, you're gonna
Go
post
Spurs,
some of
go.
your vacation pics. We'll be following you.
Yes. Yeah.
Burn it to the ground. Vickie, burn it to the ground.
We'll do. We'll do. Bye,
We'll
guys.
see you, Vickie.
Bye.
Bye.
And I guess, yeah, Joe, like you're right, just kind of doing closing thoughts here. Evan, what are your closing thoughts here on, after this day that the San Antonio Spurs traded Dejounte Murray to Atlanta?
All I gotta say is buckle up. There's gonna be more Woj bombs, more sham splashes. You know, and realistically here, I'll say this: you need to look yourself in the mirror if you're a Spurs fan and make that decision today. I'm so serious. You got to be willing to make this commitment. We're gonna be the worst team in the league probably one of the next 3 or 4 years, unless we make some serious moves. And I don't see that happen. I really don't see that happening. So people there's no one to call out. It's the consensus. Spurs fans are so mad. They're so angry. They're so brittle. They make excuses for everything. Suck it up. Go buy a jersey. Even if the new one is announced, that doesn't look the best. It looks like a WNBA jersey. Buy it. Buy it. Seriously.
It's still not the Jazz jersey, so we should be fine.
And one last thing. Show love to these guys online. Malachi, Blake Wesley, they are active online. They will open your DM. They need as much love as possible. Jamie Sohan brings that flair the Spurs need. Do not push these guys out of town. Embrace them. They want to be here. Embrace them. That's all I got.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, they're human beings too. I mean, you're gonna have to just support the team. Period. If you don't want to, we'll go ahead and make a form so you can go ahead and jump ship. We don't want you back if you leave. You gone.
Also, just consider for a minute that you're not a Knicks fan. I'm serious. Those guys, every single year, they believe they're the greatest team that has ever been put on this earth. And every year, that team fails to meet expectations. Those expectations could be low as hell, and they still don't meet those expectations. They have been mismanaged for an incredibly long amount of time, all right? And yet, those fans still get up for every game, and they go fill Madison Square Garden, and they say, I'm going to root hard as I possibly can for this team that is going to make me upset at the end of the night.
Hell, they wouldn't even let Spike Lee in, and he found a way in. You remember that?
I'm
He's
saying,
still a season ticket holder, man.
Despite their ownership trying to kick out legendary fans and former players, they are still there supporting that team. Absolutely stunning stuff.
Here, there you go. You know what? John Diaz just went ahead and put a comment on here. Our good friend John Diaz. He put, did I miss the silver and black lining? No, Ben just gave it to you, John. There you go. At least you're not a Knicks fan.
Then one of our other teammates, Matthew Lerma's here. He put, "Hey guys," earlier. Joe, what are your closing thoughts after the Spurs traded Dejounte today? How are you walking away from this?
Well, I'm walking away with this finally being relieved. It's like you got all this pressure taken off your backs now. You know, You don't have to go ahead and say, oh, we're going to go ahead and start flirting with the play-in game again. The Spurs have shown that they were never that great to go ahead and actually win the play-in game. They were too good to get a top pick. Now they're going to be bad enough to get a top pick. You got to pick your poison, own it, and just move forward with the team, having this clear direction, and just be a fan, man. I mean, I was here before the days that the Spurs came back to their winning ways. Every team goes through this. The Spurs are officially in rebuild mode. Embrace it. Go out to the AT&T Center, which is going to be named something else next season, and just look at it like this. At least you'll have cheaper tickets. You can get in that lower bowl finally, and cheer for the team. Wear the shirt, but don't get conned with that bobblehead night. They're not going to get me this year.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And then there was a question here from Robbie Morris earlier, and it's one that I've already answered before, but I'm just going to sum it up real quick. They asked, why does this trade have to wait until July 6th, and won't we gain cap space since Gallinari's salary should be enough to make the trade work? Basically, it comes down to there's some cap complications where Murray's salary at $15 million does not work because Gallo for this current season made $20 million, and you have to match up to like $5 million. There's some specific language there in the CBA, and so it wouldn't have worked to get it done tonight or tomorrow before the season ends. So it has to be done after July 6th. And the reason for that is that the Hawks most likely bumped up Gallo's salary, his partial guarantee, to about 11 or 12 million. And so we'll get those numbers soon. Hopefully whenever that trade officially becomes complete. And then the Spurs may not be on the hook for the full 21 million when they waive Gallo. It may only be for 11 or 13 million, somewhere around there. All right. So
we got a listener or viewer watching this. Hey, look at Greco Suave, man. He's been watching for a while here too. He says, I broke the mirror, I guess, when he found out, Dejounte was traded.
7 years of bad luck. Why would you do that, man?
And as far as renaming the AT&T Center, he says, how about the Taco Cabana Arena? Well, you know what? If we're going to go with Taco Cabana, why not Fred's Fish Fry? It's infamous here in San Antonio. And if you don't know, now you know. Go look it up.
And then Jonas put here 2022 Showcase Cup and 2023 G League champs for Austin. So
yeah,
let's see what happens there. Well, actually, a lot of guys might be on team this year. a lot of the rookies. All right, so thanks everyone for listening. For those of you listening on audio whenever this goes out, to listen to the Spurscast, and those of you watching us on YouTube and all the different platforms, thanks again for providing some comments and taking some time out of your evening to watch this episode. Thanks to Joe, Ben, Vickie, and Evan for joining me on this episode of the Spurscast / Roundtable, Project Spurs Roundtable, and also to Joe for mixing and producing this episode. From all of us at Project Spurs, stay safe.